point of this is to get to know some of your favorite artists a little bit better. We're going to have a little bit of fun with them. And today I am blessed to have Canada's biggest export, their #1 export. We're blessed to have them on stage. Do me a favor, please welcome the Guess Who. First and foremost, thank you very much for being here with me today. I appreciate it.
This is a great and unique experience.
It's cool.
On this boat, yeah.
What's it like being part of, you were on, now the Guess Who, they were on our 60s Flower Power cruise last week. Yeah, some of you are in the room know. And then they stayed over. They stayed over because not everyone's music translates generation to generation. This group does. They certainly do. And you fit beautifully on both cruises, which is a very cool thing and a unique thing. So it is a unique experience. What have you seen so far? What was it like on Flower Power versus so far on Rock and Romance? Derek, you're smiling like the cat that ate the canary. So
you don't want to hear what I have to say.
I think you should answer that question.
No, it's for you, D Sharp.
Okay. Well,
what was it like running around the track today?
Last week, I'll tell you. If you want to go there, I'll tell you.
Yeah, we'll go there.
Okay, last week it was kind of polite. Today it was titties.
Yeah.
And
explain that, please.
Well, just somebody flashed us twice.
Twice.
2 times.
And
Shocking.
I tell you what, though, he was handsome. He was handsome. So he was.
He was awesome. Actually, it was Leonard.
Yeah.
Handsome. It wasn't actually a past. No, I'm just kidding. No, and
it's a rock and roll crowd.
This is a pretty wild bunch.
It's a rock and roll
they've
crowd.
only been on what, one day?
Yeah. Not even 24 hours, and they're already bearing their soul to
I
you.
already have about 150 stories.
Yeah, I know, right?
But I'll shut up now.
So it hasn't changed much.
Not at all. Yeah. Now, if you don't mind, Gary, can we go around? Obviously, and I think it's no big secret in the industry, the Guess Who have been through a few builds of the band, so to speak. There's been a few members over the years. Do you know how many folks have actually been in the Guess Who from the start?
I really don't.
Could you even guesstimate it?
100.
Over 100? Yeah. I know it's a
All
big
I know is
Yeah, I read it somewhere.
Wikipedia.
I read it somewhere.
Wikipedia, yeah.
the only thing I know is that I was there from the beginning to now.
Exactly.
I'm actually in my 56th year.
Yeah. How cool is that? I tell you what, anybody who knows in this room who knows anything about music, 56 years, that's longevity beyond longevity. You don't make it that long unless you're doing something right. That's phenomenal. You've been with them since before they were the Guess Who. You started the whole thing.
Yeah, our very first name was Al and the Silvertones, which comes from the Silvertone guitar, actually. So.
And there was the Reflection. You went through a few names,
It
right?
went from Al and the Silvertones to Chad Allen and the Reflections, but there was a group from Detroit called the Reflections who had a song called Just Like Romeo and Juliet, so we didn't want to get into legal problems, so we changed it to Chad Allen and the Expressions, and then with the release of our very first record in the United States, Shakin' All Over, it was on the label. The head of quality records in Canada suggested we put Guess Who ? Because we wanted to get the record played in the United States, and at that time they were playing mostly British groups, so that was it.
And that was designed, the Guess Who with the question mark was designed to kind of be a ploy, right? As in, it literally meant Guess Who, correct?
They would run, different radio stations would run contests to see if,
they
people
could
guess.
Yeah.
And of course there was no answer to it. And they would say, oh, it's the Stones, or it was the Beatles, or... So we created a lot of excitement. We hated when finally the disc jockeys started to say, and now Shakin' All Over by the Guess Who.
And so...
That was branded. It was over.
So the disc jockeys basically...
Well, I
branded you
mean,
guys.
more or less, they kind of gave the name, and we didn't like it because it was so close to the Who. Which we idolized.
Sure.
However, there's an interesting story. We were over in England at a club called the Bag of Nails, and the Who were actually filming a video, a film at the time, for Europe, for Germany, and we watched them smash all their equipment in this video, and we came home to Canada and we started smashing all our equipment. It was kind of,
Look what we learned. Ha! Now, correct me if I'm wrong, too. You are the only member in the history of the band, is this true, who has played on every album and every tour?
every record.
Every record, yeah. Every record and every tour. The only single out of 100 some odd members, Gary Peterson. That's a cool...
Well, either I'm really good or I work cheap. I
Yeah.
don't know. So-
Listen. Don't argue with either one. I mean, but the reason I ask about how many members is I would love it if you guys wouldn't mind taking a second to introduce yourselves, obviously, and tell us how you got to be a part of the Guess Who. Will, you have to go second because you're in the hot seat. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Well, Derek and I have a Derek and I have a mutual friend who will be playing here tomorrow night, and his name's Tommy Shaw, and Tommy had said that their guitar player of the Guess Who 4 years ago was leaving, and I should consider hooking up with these fellas, and I did, and it's been a roller coaster ever since, huh?
Here you are. Who have you played with before the Guess Who? Just so these folks can get an idea.
Well, I know Tommy from Shaw Blades because Jack Blades, Tommy Shaw, and
Yeah.
myself played in that for a couple years when we were out touring. And then I continued making records with him and Jack, and that pretty much, I played with Green Day for their American Idiot musical and a few other things, so that's...
They're not laughing at you, Will. They're laughing at Derek because Derek is...
And actually,
Sorry, they're laughing at you, Will.
before Will goes to Derek, he's a little bit modest. He helped write and he produced Styx's new album.
Yes.
So he's not telling you all, and more than that, he produced our new album, which is coming out in September, I guess.
Yep.
We'll jump into that. Yeah, we'll get into that. I want to know more about that. But if you don't mind, let's find out about the band, and then we're going to come back. And I do want to know more about it. Derek, you're up. Spotlight. Sorry, D sharp. Yeah, yeah. Get him, Will.
Hi, everybody.
He's very shy. Sorry, if we could all be quiet.
What do you want to know? How long
How'd you get to be in the Guess Who, sir? Yeah.
Well, they asked me.
That's.
They needed a singer. As of this year, I think I'm the longest-serving singer ever in this band.
I heard that you are the longest-standing singer for the
So-
Guess Who,
Yep, and I'm quitting next week. That's
and
it.
the tallest.
As soon as that milestone hit, I'm out of here. Gonna start my own coffee shop. My first band I was in was with this fella, who's really famous now. His name's Jesse Cook. He's a world famous flamenco guitar player.
Yeah.
Anybody know this guy? He's got way more money than me. But we were in a band together, and that was kind of my thing. We were about 14 years old, and that was my entrance to the music business. And then I've played with a lot of famous Canadian people since I'm Canadian. Yeah. Anyway, what? Really?
Yeah.
Then how come y'all want to move up to our country?
I know. People are pushing the border these days.
Yeah. So other than that, I'm getting up there, and I've played a lot of music in my life, and that's the story.
And they love
Love
you.
you too.
And you've been in for what, 10 years? 10,
Yep.
11 years now? Yeah.
Yep.
That's very cool. Very cool. Leonard? You take a mic. Grab. There you go.
Hi.
Hello.
Well, like Gary, I'm from Winnipeg. I was born and raised in Winnipeg, Canada. And when I was 20, I was in a band with a guy named Dale Russell, it was a jazz rock fusion band. We were very experimental, and I met Dale. Dale went on to kind of had a country career, but he was in the Guess Who in the mid-'80s, I guess he joined. And the keyboard player at the time left, and I went and heard them in 1990. He had an accident, so I ended up playing with them that night. He was another guy from Winnipeg named Mike Hanford. Anyway, I replaced him, and I started touring with the band in 1991. And at that time, I was living in Toronto, working in a little band called Backstreet. And ironically, Derek
Not
joined-
Backstreet Boys.
Not the boys.
Okay.
Babies.
Backstreet
Babies.
Got it.
No, just the name was called Backstreet. It was just a rock band. But ironically, when I left to join the Guess Who, Derek came in shortly after that.
To Backstreet,
And started
yeah.
playing guitar and singing in that band. Not at, we didn't play at the same time until that band did. Yeah, two ships.
Ships with a P. Ships with a P.
More shits.
Just like we're now we're passing. And
Yeah.
Okay, that's it.
Very cool. Very
Pass
cool.
over to Rudy.
Rudy. Will, would you be so kind as to hand Rudy your microphone there?
Oh, I got one.
Oh, Rudy got. Oh,
Give
yeah,
him
Gary.
all
I got
three.
Gary's mic here.
Yeah, give him two because he's.
Hola. Yeah,
he's a
this
big
one's
deal.
Spanish.
Yeah.
This one's in English.
Yeah. One's in Canadian, one's in American. It'll be perfect.
right.
for-
Okay. In the 70s, I moved to Los Angeles and I joined a band called Quiet Riot. And yeah. And when Randy Rhoads left Quiet Riot and joined Ozzy, a couple of years later, they were looking for a new rhythm section. So they got Tommy Aldrich, and then Randy recommended me. So my first big break was with Ozzy Osbourne. Then after that, after Randy's passing, I rejoined what is known as the Metal Health version of Quiet Riot. And then after that, a couple of years later, I joined Whitesnake.
Whitesnake, yeah.
Whitesnake, those guys, yeah. Okay, and then after that, been in bands like Dio and played with Blue Oyster Cult for about 8 years. And then I joined this band called Queensryche. We were doing the Jeff Tate version of Queensryche, which was not exactly Queensryche because they had a split, but we were doing the Operation Mindcrime record. So Sass Jordan, who happens to be Derek's better half, was on tour with us. She played Sister Mary. And, we became friends. And then when they were looking for a bassist, she recommended me. And that's how I got here.
And you're an author?
I'm sorry?
You're an author, correct?
Yeah, well, I wrote a book. I mean, just writing one book doesn't make you an author.
It does in
as-
my mind.
as you know.
I've written none, so I can't be called an author. You've written one, therefore you are an author.
You gotta write. I'm working on my coloring book next. So that will solidify me as
You're
an
on
author.
page 7 and you're still in the
Yes.
lines, right? Yeah.
That's right.
We're going to come right back in just a moment with more with this fantastic group. Don't go anywhere. Don't change the channel. Back with more with the Guess Who. Welcome back. Welcome back, my friends. We're here with the Guess Who. Now, before we went to break, actually, about an hour before we went to break, we kind of cut Will off a little bit. We were talking, the mention was of a new record for the Guess Who. Let's chat about this a little bit. So there's a new record coming out. Take us away, Will.
Yeah, it's the first record in how long, Gary?
45 years.
45 years.
Just a
So-
tiny little break.
The last one was a polka record.
It's a polka record.
And I know Derek had some songs already that he had produced and written with the band. And when I came aboard, Leonard, Derek, and myself decided to start the process of writing again. And we came up with a handful of other tracks. And from that point on, it took a life of its own. And we went to Blackbird Studio in Nashville, and we tracked a lot of the tracks there. So it's got 11 songs on it. We're pretty proud of it. No, it doesn't. 10. It's
got
I'm
10.
adding songs.
If you book now, you might get the 11th.
There is the
That's
11th track. It does go to 11.
So 10 tracks, and are they all new? All new tracks?
Yes.
All new tracks. Very cool. And when does this drop? When do we get to go buy this?
The fall.
In the fall.
Tonight.
Yeah.
Tonight.
Tonight.
If you're interested, we will play 2 of them tonight.
All right. Very cool.
Well, even if they're not, we're going to play them anyway.
Yeah.
Because we.
Did you play them last night?
Yeah,
Okay,
we've
so
been playing them every night.
Some of you heard them last night, and then the rest of you. By round of applause, how many saw them last night? Who saw them last night? By round of applause, who gets to see them tonight? Who sees them tonight? All right. So the new album comes out in the fall. And first album in 45 years. Gary, how does that feel to put something else, to put something new out after a couple of decades?
Well, I can only relate to you the experience that I had in Blackbird. You know, it's an analog studio, and it has the same
Wow.
console that we recorded almost all of our records on. The studio is owned by John McBride, who is Martina's husband, and front of house mixer on her tours. He has all kinds of Beatle paraphernalias all over the walls. It's kind of a very vibey place, and I was sitting there thinking, and I had a tear in my eye thinking, you know, how great it was to be there and do something I never thought I would do again. And it was a very cathartic experience for me. So that's my
Thank you for
reveal of
sharing
my
that.
answer.
Thank you for sharing that. And Derek, if you don't mind me asking, you're following a long line of legendary singers, some really great vocalists that have performed in the band. What's it like for you when you get the stage at night and you get to sing these Eyes, American Women, when you get to sing these songs that are legendary and that have been made famous over decades and decades? It's got to be kind of a cool thing to go out there and put your spin on it. And
Yeah, well, my experience is just the connection with people. I don't think about the songs really,
Sure.
because unless they're ones that I wrote, because it has only because it has a meaning to me, right? You know.
the other songs have no meaning.
Well,
I'm joking. I'm joking.
they do, but that's
Of course.
my part of the experience
Of course.
is singing to people, and that's the only difference every night between those songs, because we've played them, I've sang them 10,000 times. You know, it can get quite boring if you look at it just like singing
Sure.
songs. So every night's a different experience because of that and because of the audience.
And depending
so
on
it's
who
not
flashes
about
you
me
in.
at all.
Well, but at the same time, though, and I think I'm speaking to all of you, but you know, as the lead vocalist out front, the bands that have longevity, the bands that make it, and if anyone here is familiar with the term the fourth wall. The fourth wall is the wall between the stage and the audience. It's a proverbial wall. You can't see this wall. It is what separates you from what's happening on stage and what's happening on stage from you. And the great entertainers and the great bands and the great frontmen, the people who've made it the longest, have learned to shatter that fourth wall and bring you into the performance and make you feel like you're a part of it. And I think that's a testament.
It works both ways.
And it works
though.
both ways.
And I guess I'll add to that. You know, I've played with some pretty big bands before.
Sure.
And done some big concerts. In fact, one of them is where I met Gary. It was the. Do you guys remember the SARS outbreak?
I was gonna bring that
in
up, yeah.
2003. So that was at the time the highest paid attendance in the world in history.
450.
Yeah, but that's what they said, but it was more.
It was more than
closer to 600,000 people.
Holy
so
cow.
much where you just couldn't. You know, he'll tell you, we were standing there, and it was surreal.
That's
it
gotta
didn't even
be-
look like people.
No, you can't even imagine.
Yeah,
what
but
it-
when you get to do shows like that, it's you know, it's not like playing in the theater
Sure.
here where you're close and I can see you and hi.
There's an
You know,
intimacy.
it's more like an oil painting that smokes.
That's a phenomenal analogy, by the way.
But anyways, so him and I actually hit it off. It was my wife. He started talking to my wife because my wife Sass was on the bill, and I was playing with her. And him and his wife started talking to her. She goes, "Oh, you got to meet these people. They're really nice." So we started talking, and then, which was a bit of foreshadowing, of course, because at that time, I was doing something completely different, and so was he. And then when I joined the band, you know. We reminded each other about that.
Remember that one time in front of
Yeah, it was-
600,000 people
well,
when we met.
it was almost like fate.
Sure.
You and I were supposed to be together.
Little did we know.
Isn't that cool though?
That is very cool. That is very cool. Here's a question though, and actually this is directly to what you just said. Is it? I know it's different, and I know this is a tough question, but what do you like more? A more intimate room, or 600,000 people? What's more fun to perform?
Both, and for different reasons.
Please.
One, because something like that, the big thing is a challenge because, like I said before, you don't really have anybody to sing to, and you're just kind of you're singing to nothing. When you're playing an intimate show, like I said, you can make connections with people, which is again that's the most important thing to me.
What do you think, Gary?
Oh, for me,
Yeah.
intimate,
Intimate. You
Oh,
like the intimate?
without doubt. But there's a
more
third.
subtlety.
There's
Yeah.
a third performance.
Naked.
This. Well,
He excels.
I challenge you to run naked tomorrow around the track on this boat.
You heard it here.
I'm gonna do
What
it.
happens.
Only if he does it with me.
There's going to be,
We've had enough nudity for one day.
yeah. There's going to be more people on the running check than this ship has ever seen tomorrow.
The third category is the studio,
Sure.
and that has no audience at all. So, and I would never compare them really.
Yeah, it's a different animal.
It's a different animal, and all of it is part of what we do. You know, that's just it. Creating is a wonderful thing. Playing to people and making them happy or sad or whatever human emotion you can have is like a drug. You want more, you want to do it more, and that's really the way I feel about it, you know. It's addictive, but it's rewarding. That's the way I would describe it.
And when you guys are in the studio, is it a challenge? And this is a ridiculous way. Is it a challenge to get up for the performance?
Oh yeah, it's
because you're not feeding off anything.
It's not if you're playing together, but what happens if you have to start doing overdubbing and do things,
Sure.
which it was hard for us because number one, we live in different cities. We live about as far away from each other.
All five of you live in
and
different
there's a
cities.
reason for that.
Yes,
Yeah,
there
yeah.
is.
That's why they're still together.
So
That's-
it costs $10,000 just for us to hang out together. So,
So you really have to
It's an
want-
expensive hobby, you know. We're going to keep playing till all the money runs out.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's difficult, and we didn't. We got to do it a little bit together, but because of the proximity, Will and I had to go home and do some stuff in our own studios at home. And that's the hard part because you have to kind of get yourself up for that.
Sure.
You know, in the headspace. Where when Gary played, we were together.
Yep.
So he had to look at our pretty faces.
He got to look at your pretty face.
Yeah, you know, we're on in age, so all of us have personal commitments, such as families. So it gets very difficult. It's not like we're 18 years old and living all in a house, you know, cooking and playing whenever we
should
want
try
to do
that,
it.
though.
So, yeah.
You guys should
Do it
try it.
again. Yeah.
You should do a reality show.
Yeah, man.
Add the question mark back to the Guess Who and just put it. Guess who is
No.
coming to dinner?
No, it'll turn into guess why. That's
That's awesome.
I don't mind.
All right, my friends, don't leave the room. Don't change the channel. I'll be back for one more segment with the Guess Who. Welcome back, everybody. Welcome back. I'm in my final segment with the Guess Who. Now, we were chatting about the new album, and you guys were gracious enough to discuss the nuances between performing for big crowds, small crowds, and in the studio, which is, thank you very much for sharing that. But I also, speaking of the fourth wall, I like to break it myself in our Q&As, and before we do these, we allow guests to write down questions. And a few of them have written down some questions for you. I have them write them down so they don't yell them out because they can be awkward. So... One learns from their mistakes in 20 years of hosting. So, Mike from Toronto is asking, how is Jim Cale? How's Jim?
I like how we all look at each other.
Yeah,
right?
everyone looks at Will.
No,
I don't
well,
know.
but it's not strange. You could have got a call from him in the last few days, so I don't know.
Leonard.
Leonard is in Winnipeg, but Jim being close to me in the band. He's retired. He's very happy doing what he's doing. He's enjoyed his time in the band, but I don't think it's a passion anymore for him. You know, he
Sure.
wants to be with his dog. He loves his
Fur
he's-
babies. Fur babies.
He's got a little dog, and his dog's name is Jippy, and he calls him Jippy Dog. So
Jippy dog.
yeah.
Old Jippy dog.
That's his whole life, and so I think as I saw him on the road, he couldn't wait to get back to this, you know, and that's hard.
That's
With-
probably an
yeah.
indicator too.
It's an
Personally,
indicator,
you kind of
yeah.
know when you're
And it was time
Yeah.
for him.
okay. So he's still doing well though. He's just hanging out with Jippy Dog. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, and watching CNN. I don't
Nah.
know.
He's a busy man. He's got a lot of things to watch these days.
He's got cable and satellite, right? He watches a lot of TV. He's got CNN on
retired.
his channel, and yeah, he's got two
He's
things going at
actu-
once.
He's actually pretty cerebral. He kind of likes news channels. Yeah, politics.
He likes politics. Well, he's got a lot to work with right now. Pat from Pat from Lexington. Well, we kind of already answered this. And he says, "Saw you at Epcot." Sorry, Pat. Is that man Pat or female Pat? Forgive me, man Pat in the back. All right. It's one. I apologize, Pat. It's one of those names. I just want
Actually,
to be
isn't
sure.
Pat like a neutral name?
It is. It's one of those completely
It's
ambiguous.
genderless?
Yeah, completely genderless. Saturday Night Live.
No, actually, I was kind of kidding, but isn't that a Saturday Night
It's a
Live
Saturday
thing?
Night Live.
Pat, the
It's
Pat.
Pat. Yeah. You look like a man, though, Pat. You look like a man, Pat, not an ambiguous
man.
Pat.
She cut them off long time ago.
Yeah, exactly. Pat from Lexington, South Carolina says, "I saw you at Epcot a few years ago. Bass player was an original, as we are, and said there's been 54 plus members of Guess Who, over 100 really at the long and short of it. Is there an updated count? We already kind of talked about it. Your show was awesome. When are you coming back to Epcot?
in May.
Couple days. Yeah, very, very soon. You're coming back for what? 4 days? 3 days?
Four
Nights.
nights. Yeah.
4 nights in Epcot.
Yeah.
17th of May.
We've actually really made it big now.
Yeah.
Because our next date is the Villages.
Oh, listen.
I couldn't believe it when I saw it on the calendar. I thought, wow, this is.
You've made it
Well, I
for a
see it-
long time.
I live in North Carolina, so I see all the ads for it, and I have a friend from North Carolina who retired there, and I thought, what are we going to do there?
Play golf. Yeah, I heard it.
Play golf, yeah. Well, I'd like that, yeah.
Oh, here we go. Here we go for Derek. They actually wrote D sharp on here, D pound sign. This is from George and Joanne from Baltimore/Portsmouth. On average, how many groupie room keys are you offered a night? More importantly, can I get the leftovers? Signed Nigel. Don't answer it if you don't. He gets flashed on the running track, is what he gets.
Well,
Yeah.
you know, it used to be young, cute girls when I was young, and now it's just different.
Politically said, sir.
Well, I'm not, I'm counting myself. In
I
that,
understand.
so, I'm not-
It used to be young, cute girls. Now
I
it's.
used to be a cute young girl.
Yeah.
If you see pictures of me when I was young, I was fairly androgynous. Not that much.
They called him Pat. Yeah.
I was a Pat.
Yeah.
Pat Sharp.
No disrespect, Pat. This
so,
is why.
So, like, don't come to the show. This is far better.
Yeah,
here,
this
Tom.
is-
You're gonna
Actually-
forget
We're good
the
right here.
show.
No, I was neutered about 18 years ago.
That's how he hits the high
My
notes.
last
That's how
child
he
was
gets to
born.
the
They
notes.
sent me off
Yeah.
to the vet, and that was Pat. I became Pat.
That's how he gets to those notes. You
That's
can't
a
get
true
him without.
story.
Mike,
TMI.
I think it says Snyder. I think it says Snyder. What name brand of guitar? Any of you that play guitar, it says. What name brand of guitar do you prefer?
Gibson.
Fire away. I play bass. I don't play.
Well, but
Is that what you do? I'm
Gary,
scared.
this is
I don't
Rudy.
know that.
Rudy's been in the band for a few years.
Yeah. He's an awesome guy, too.
Listen, over 100 members. It's hard to keep them all straight, Gary. So,
we use Gibsons.
Gibsons.
That's basically.
Gibsons all the time.
But Rudy has his own bass.
Oh,
They make one special for him.
He has his own bass.
It's a signature bass. Yeah.
signature bass. Please share. Please share.
It's got one string.
Just one.
That's all I need.
That's all you need. Drop D and go. Yeah. Shane Blair, all the way from Tennessee, says, again, for any of you, who is your favorite band to tour with? Good question. Who's your favorite band to tour with? Doesn't have to be as part of the Guess Who. It could be
Yeah,
part of the career.
you know, we play with a lot of bands maybe one night and tours together. I guess the most interesting tour we had was with Three Dog Night in Australia. And there was an airline strike, and we had to go by train from Melbourne to Perth, which is like going from,
Mars
Chicago.
to your Earth. Yeah, it's
Because Australia is as big as the United States, right? And the both bands drank the train dry, first of all. And then they stopped in this place called Kalgoorlie, which is where they have the red light houses. And the boys got off the train, and because it was dry, there was no. Went to the hotel and proceeded to drink there. The conductor had to go and get them, and bring them back because the train had to leave. So
You will notice he keeps saying them. He was no part of this.
No,
Took no part of this.
no, I wasn't there. I
you weren't?
wasn't. No, I was still on the train, but I think Three Dog Night was good to travel with. Now I don't think we really did many large tours. Joe Cocker, we did on the reunion tour. That was a lot of fun because we were both, quite on in our. That was 2002, and we did all over the United States and Canada, and it was great. That was a great tour.
Sounds like a lot of fun. Rudy, your book, I believe, is about touring with Ozzy, is it not? It's all about.
Well, it's actually it's about that also. It's about answering the number one question I get asked, which was, what it's like to play with Randy Rhoads. What was it like? So, but Ozzy's in it because obviously,
It's
we were
Ozzy.
playing together. Ozzy, yeah.
Yeah.
It was never a dull moment. As a matter of fact, I was watching Forrest Gump on the TV, and I'm thinking, wait a minute, I was there for that when that happened, and that other thing, like the biting the head of the bat and pissing on the Alamo and all the crazy stuff, and I felt like Forrest Gump. Just being
Your stories literally line up
That's
where
right,
you were.
lined up, yeah.
I may not be a smart man, but I do know who Ozzy is. Sorry. It happens. I apologize. Now, gentlemen, I want to ask an inquiring question. Are you excited for tonight's show? Are you looking forward to this crowd tonight?
Of course.
And go ahead, Gary.
Well, I was going to say that it's time for my
He's been in the
nap.
business for 60
It's time
years.
for my nap now.
He's
I
60
gotta
The
go.
leg off
No,
a wood stove.
Yeah.
This particular band that you see on stage here is one of the most talented groups of people that have ever played in this band. Maybe, in my opinion, the best band of all. And I.
That's a
yeah.
statement.
And that's musically and also the best group of people that you could ever want to meet. And I really I was
When they sat down, Derek actually looked at Will and said, I want to sit next to Granddad.
well, Will is old enough to be my son, so
Young enough to be.
or young
yeah.
enough. Yeah. Well, old enough. It's really made me want to play as long as I can. I'll be 73 in May, and I've had a lot of structural work done to my body because drumming professionally since 1949 takes a lot of out of you. But I'm physically good, except on my last operation I got E. coli. And so I have to be on antibiotics maybe for the rest of my life, but that's not going to stop me. But getting back to this band, I was thinking after the show last night, and I was sitting on my balcony looking at the ocean, and thinking, you know, this has given me a kind of a new lease on life, and it's really because of these guys right here, you know. I'm very happy.
Well, I think in exactly the same way we discussed about Cale, you know, I think Derek and I made eye contact. You kind of know, right? And there's got to be a certain part of you know when you're wanting to retire. You know when you're wanting to be done. You miss the family. You miss Chippy Dog.
We all miss that.
Chippy
though.
Dog?
No.
Oh, your own dog.
Well, we actually recorded a song about Chippy Dog, but that's another story.
He used to count that if we were going out for 17 days, he'd announce every day how many days there were left before he went home. It was.
And I guess that's my
to
point.
See the dog.
Exactly, and that's kind of my point. I'm not saying you don't miss your families and your everything at home, but you there's got to be a point where you start to recognize and realize you're starting to want to be home more than you're wanting to be with the band and be performing and be touring. But I guess I'm relaying that to your comments. It's amazing to hear that after some odd years, you still desire this, you still love this, and with the current build of the band, you still look forward to this, and it's a big part of your life.
Well, for me, you know, it's a question when I go on stage. I go, well, is this the last show? I mean, you start to think that way because that's going to come. It is going
Sure.
to come. And I've been playing drums so long, and of course in this band so long, that it's something you don't want taken away from you. So
100%. You kind of want to go out on your own terms with it eventually, but
well, the guys have often heard me say that one day they'll pull me dead off my drums. And that's not a bad thing.
That's not a bad thing at all.
Except I hope my wife is there, because I would rather. That's another conundrum, you know, because you know there are musicians that die. I mean, Boston's drummer
Yeah.
was on a cruise,
Yeah.
so you know.
Don't say it like that, Gary. Good Lord, man.
No.
Everyone knock on something wood. Jeez.
Hey, when
Yeah.
your ticket is punched, it's punched.
Well, it's
Not on
Don't
the Rock and
worry.
Romance cruise, it's not.
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. I have a saying that if
Take the Rock and Romance cruise.
my
It's the
saying-
performance of a lifetime.
my saying is, if you live in the past, you miss the present, and there is
Great
no
saying.
future.
That is the perfect way.
and
To wrap things up.
And what's the name of the new record?
The name of the new record.
The name of the new record is "The Future Is What It Used to Be."
That's cool. Everybody wrap your heads around that for a moment. Here's the deal.
What does that mean?
I'll tell you exactly what it means. I wanted to call it. I'm into the Yogi Bearisms, right? I wanted to call it "The Future Ain't What It Used to Be" because it just makes me laugh every time I hear that. But you know, we started talking about it, and Ron Stone, the guys working with us, pointed out that another band did it 2 or 3 years ago, and didn't want to confuse it. So I don't know. We were just talking. I think Gary came up with it, right? He
Yeah,
just said,
I
instead
said-
of "ain't what it used to be," why
I-
don't we call it "is what it used to be"?
Because
And I said that makes no sense to me whatsoever.
All the more
Let's
reason
do
to
it.
use it. Yeah.
yeah, most of the titles I started thinking about in this band is "No Sugar," "No Time," "American Woman, Stay Away From Me." It kind of gave me a negative feeling, so I said, why don't we give it a positive title? And that's really
Well, and I'll elaborate on that. Will and I and Gary, actually all of us, but because we were more involved in that part of it, we purposely recorded our record to sound like it was done a long time ago. Okay, number one. So we wanted to have some link to
Authentic
that.
sound.
Yeah, so we wanted a title that would reflect that because we have to have a narrative for it to talk about it. So that's where all of this stuff came from.
That's very cool. But with that said, I want you to do me a favor. They took time out of their day. They got a big show tonight. They still found time to come down here and talk to us. Please help me thank the Guess Who. Tomorrow, 4:30 in Revelations, I've got Styx for All Access Pass. Have a great afternoon, my friends. I'm your host, Jason. I'll see you out and about.